presidents we've ever had in our history, Theodore Roosevelt. He was a Harvard graduate, and he was enamored with the United States Navy. He wrote a book about the United States Navy called Navy Warfare of 1812. He would go to the Naval War College in 1888 as the Assistant Secretary of the Navy, where he would study under Alfred Thayer Mahan. And he was no stranger to the United States Naval Academy. When he was brought in to president, after President McKinley was assassinated in September of 1901, he was the youngest president in our history at 42 years old. And just a few years later, he would be at the Naval Academy on April 24th, 1906, where he would bring back the remains of our greatest Revolutionary War hero, Captain John Paul Jones. And Captain John Paul Jones had been found in an unmarked grave in Paris, France, there for over 100 years. And when he was brought by the USS Constitution, President Roosevelt had received many letters of where to put John Paul Jones. And he decided that John Paul Jones would come to the Naval Academy. He would preside over his internment at Dahlgren, a new building that had only been constructed in 1903. And in front of 4,000 midshipmen and alumni and graduates, he spoke about courage. And he said, John Paul Jones needs to come to the Naval Academy because this generation of midshipmen will be inspired by him. And the courage that they need, along with the equipment that they will get, will make them invincible. Now, Theodore Roosevelt had many great quotes. He talked about how the critic didn't matter, the man or woman in the arena was the only person that mattered, with the sweat and dust and blood on their face, the ability to fail 1,000 times, but only to be successful that one time. But the quote that I think is most memorable, and the one that I want to leave with the class of 2019, is that quote he made before he was the president. On January 24th, 1900, he wrote a letter to the Republican Committee in New York. And he was very happy that they had decided to not use a benefactor for funding because he was a little bit shady. In that letter he wrote, "Walk softly, but carry a big stick, and you will go far." So class of 2019, as I reeled off those wonderful statistics about you, this is maybe that moment where you should remember that if you're graduating and being commissioned as an ensign today, you're going to be one of 3 ensigns. There's going to be very qualified young men and women from the Officer Candidate School, Reserve Officer Training Corps programs from over 100 colleges and universities, and they don't care where you graduated or how many points you scored in a sporting event. They just care that whether or not you're good enough to do the job. And for you Marines, you're going to be about 1 in 5 from those same programs. Now, I'm not saying don't be proud of where you come from. Just know that you will have to prove yourself every day. And what I believe Theodore Roosevelt was talking about in Walk Softly is to be very successful, it's your acts that will speak for you, not your words. Humility is a trait that will take you very, very far. And when he was talking about that big stick, we could talk about the hardware that you're going to inherit in the Navy and the Marine Corps, some of the greatest that mankind has ever known. And yes, that will be important for you to become professionals in how to operate that equipment. But as I look across this graduating class, I would tell you that it is the diversity of what you bring as a class of 2019, not just gender diversity, not just ethnic diversity, not just religious, economic, geographic, but the diversity of your thought. The tools that this institution has given to you will make you critical thinkers, the ability to analyze and take that and lead men and women in peace and war. Now, as I wrap up my thoughts, and it is a bittersweet moment for me today because this is my last time to address a graduating class of the United States Naval Academy. So from your superintendent team, myself and Mrs. Carter, I'd like to leave you with just a couple of words. Now, as you all know, at the end of this ceremony, we'll sing the Navy Blue and Gold, but the lesser known verse of the Navy Blue and Gold I think is relevant today because at this graduation, the class of 2019 will join those 85,000 plus men and women who have gone before you to graduate from this institution since 1845 and you will be joining what is commonly known as the Long Blue Line. 4 years together by the bay, where 7 joins the tide. Then by the service called away, we're scattered far and wide. But still when 2 or 3 shall meet, and old tales be retold, from low to highest in the fleet, we'll pledge the blue and gold. Godspeed 2019. May God bless our nation. May God bless our Navy Marine Corps team. Go Navy, beat Air Force, beat Army. It's now my great pleasure to introduce the 76th Secretary of the Navy, the Honorable Richard V. Spencer.
Acting Secretary Shanahan, Commandant, CNO, Superintendent, thank you for inviting me here today and welcoming me to this great event. As many of you know, I'm all about productivity and urgency, so I'm going to keep this brief and to the point because I have to get you commissioned and out into the fleet. To the faculties, commanders, instructors of this institution, thank you. This fine group of graduates would not be here without you. And to every member of the Naval Academy class of 2019, when I hear what you've done, all I can say is bravo, Zulu. Think back to when you first stepped on these hallowed grounds. Think back to some of the darkest days in this journey that you've had. And now you're basking in the sunlight, literally, of your achievements. It's really all about you today. Take a moment to congratulate yourself. But remember, you did not get here alone. Each one of you has benefited from the support of your friends and family along the way. Your achievements here and beyond are their achievements also. Don't ever forget, families are the true strength of our force. Today, you have earned 2 documents, a degree and a commission. Your degree signifies your academic achievements at one of our nation's top research and educational institutions. It declares that you possess the drive, the creativity, the intellectual skills to tackle the world's most vexing problems that we are facing. As a continual learning enterprise, the Navy Marine Corps team needs you to continue that spirit throughout your career, reimagining, reinventing, re-engineering our force to meet the relentless demand signal for innovation. The Navy Marine Corps team is the most lethal and ready forward deployed team in the world. Over the past 3 years, we've been rebuilding, modernizing, and recharging this force. We enjoy a technology gap, but ladies and gentlemen, that gap is under threat. We have the resources to widen that advantage again. And we have the money to do it also. And right here, looking out, I know we have the energy and the intellect. But I would be remiss if I did not mention that time is not on our side. Go forth with urgency. We cannot buy time. Put your academic achievements to work immediately and relentlessly, please. The second document you will receive today is your commission. Unlike your degree, this commission is not about you. This commission is about your country. It's a reflection of the special trust and confidence placed in you by the President of the United States. Conduct yourself in a manner that is worthy of that trust, whether anyone is looking or not. From the moment you set foot in your first command, you will be responsible for others. Your decisions, Your actions, your guidance will impact them and their families. You have much to teach those in your command, but you also have much to learn, particularly from your non-commissioned officers, so listen. One of the keys to managing and leading is listening. Encourage them, empower them, have them speak up when they see a problem, entertain the solutions they put forth. One of the best leadership and management tools that I was taught early on in my career is one that is simple yet very powerful and very insightful. MBW, management by walking around. Do it. You will learn, you will see, and you will improve. You will be challenged, and you will challenge others. Learn from both the good and the not so good examples during your career, and foster a spirit of achievement wherever you go. Where your orders take you matters less than the attitude and effort that you bring to command. Officers who stood where you stand today have gone on to become admirals, generals, battle-tested veterans, and successful professionals. Some of them are here today. Former MIDs who graduated into the jungles of Vietnam, the skies over Europe, the deep blue throughout the Cold War, the global conflict against violent extremism, and the emerging domains of cyberspace and outer space. They served with distinction and honor, both in the military and civilian life, and then they returned to this campus to mentor and inspire as another link in the unbroken chain, 50 years later in the 173 history of this great institution. Ladies and gentlemen, once again, please join me in welcoming and thanking the class of 1969. But back to you, because today is about you, 2019. I want to think about how you'd like to look back on this day. In the years and decades to come, this will help anchor who you are. Every graduate of the class of '69 and every class before and since has taken the same sacred oath that you will take today. Every one of them was in some way or another tested against that oath, as you surely will be also. But I am confident you will meet this test through your career because I know what you have accomplished here. So I'll keep it short. Keep your commitment. Don't ever get complacent. Always remember what brought you here, who brought you here, because that will determine everything about where you go from here. To every sailor and Marine here today, thank you for your service and commitment. It's an honor to welcome you to the fleet, and I know there's 4 people up here that are waiting for you because we have some things for you to do. Fair winds and following seas. Thank you.
Thank you, Secretary Spencer. Ladies and gentlemen, it is now my pleasure to introduce our keynote speaker. Please give a warm welcome to the Acting Secretary of Defense, the Honorable Patrick M. Shanahan.
Thank you, sir. All right, good. Thank you, Vice Admiral Carter, and thank you for your service and remarkable leadership. Secretary Spencer, where's the CNO? There you are. CNO, Commandant. Ambassadors, distinguished guests, and all faculty and alumni, thank you for joining us on this special day. To the families and friends here today, moms and dads, brothers and sisters, aunts, uncles, grandparents, loving friends, would you please stand? That's all of you. There you go. Keep standing. This day belongs to our graduates, but it was made possible by your countless sacrifices day in and day out. You got to keep standing. Hang with me. Over many years, Thanks to you, your sons and daughters are people of character, selfless citizens ready and willing to serve our country, the best of the best. You did your job with them, and you did it brilliantly. So now, I invite our midshipmen to please rise and render appropriate honors to your family and friends in loud Navy fashion. Okay. All right, now everybody can be seated. Well done. Now, most importantly, to our soon-to-be ensigns and second lieutenants, the U.S. Naval Academy class of 2019, let me offer my sincere congratulations. Since you first arrived on the yard, you've excelled. From academics and athletics to sea trials to summer trainings to truly difficult tasks like scaling Herndon Monument in 1 hour, 12 minutes, and 30 seconds. Midshipman Chris Bianchi, well done. We could speak for a long time on all you have achieved, but you would learn little from such a talk. You'd feel good, but that is not my intent. I need you to learn and be better than yesterday, every day. So I'm not going to waste your time. The class of 2019 will do amazing things, I guarantee it. You will make your friends, your family, and country proud. But today I want to speak on the topic of failure. Yes, failure. For such a successful class, failure is largely an abstract concept, something for others to consider and deal with. From what I understand from the superintendent, the experience of failure is unfamiliar to many of you. And to a greater extent than you might realize, that is a liability. If you've ever studied the samurai culture of feudal Japan, you know the most feared, most dangerous of all samurai were those who had felt the cut of their opponent's sword and lived to fight the next battle. Why? Because they no longer feared the sword. They could and would press the fight, knowing the danger but unafraid of it. Somewhat similarly, today in Silicon Valley, the major private equity investors don't usually put their fortunes behind the smartest young people. They look for seasoned entrepreneurs who have gone bankrupt before, who have failed. Why? Because those people know where they went wrong, and they are smarter, wiser, less arrogant, and more capable than those who have never failed. If you've never experienced failure, if you've not felt the cut of the blade, then when failure finds you, you won't know how to recover. It will crush your image of yourself. It will hurt too much. It will be embarrassing. It will stop you from becoming who you could be. It could turn you into someone who avoids putting themselves on the line because they don't want to fail again. Someone who looks for easier tasks. Worse, you might be tempted to avoid future situations with low probabilities of success for fear of receiving a black mark on your record. You must resist that temptation, kill that fear. The U.S. Navy and Marine Corps exist to fight, not simply to stay in position. And to paraphrase class of 23 alum Admiral Arleigh Burke, when the time comes to fight, you'd better know how. Your country and this department need naval officers who don't simply identify problems, but roll up their sleeves and get really hard stuff done. At midnight, on the high seas in 50-foot swells, or in the Earth's harshest environments against unforgiving enemies. While we always expect you to strive for excellence, the zero-defect mentality is a handicap we simply cannot afford. It is something you cannot afford. It will not lead you to greatness, but to mediocrity. So if you'll bear with me today, I'd like to offer some thoughts on how to get into the game and move past the very natural human tendency to avoid challenges that might result in failure. My first piece of advice is this. When the project or mission appears slated for failure, stay the course, find a better path, and don't you dare quit. Real opportunities for greatness reveal themselves when things seem at their darkest. Easy to say, don't quit, but by now you've learned the hard truth. Many people cannot handle the pressure of being close to failure and staying the course. Rather than look for creative solutions, their energies turn to finding a way to avoid blame. Let me tell you a quick story. In 1997, when most of you were born, I was relatively early in my career, but I was succeeding, and I was being put on the fast track. I was asked if I would leave my senior leader position at a plant that was enormously successful and move to an operation at a different site that was failing spectacularly. Production troubles were unprecedented. Costs were soaring, suppliers weren't delivering, and we were way behind schedule. The company reported its first annual loss in 40 years. It was a terrible situation. I had the option to say no, but I said yes because I wanted to test my mettle. I wanted to know if I could, as a relatively young person, make a difference. Managing the operation was grueling. We worked tirelessly every day for 12 to 18 hours a day. Coming home, I would pull off the road to sleep for a few minutes as I was too tired to drive. Still, progress was unsatisfactory to my managers. And then someone threw me a lifeline, probably to save my career, a chance to switch jobs, to dodge association with failure. Against most of the advice I received, I decided to stay, and I'm so unbelievably glad I did. Despite the black mark it brought on my record, despite the embarrassment, for the first time in my life, I came to understand why the captain goes down with his ship. Because the mission matters more than he does. You midshipmen learned that mission-first mindset here at Annapolis from the moment you arrived. Guard that mindset when you go into the fleet, because a day will come when you're tempted to protect your career at a price of accepting a hard mission or seeing it through. On that day, remember that Herndon Monument is only there because Commander Herndon chose to go down with the SS Central America. For me, the experience at that struggling plant also taught me to get comfortable being uncomfortable, to take heat. Taking tougher projects became easier. I would focus on the work without worrying about what my superiors might think of me. This is a critical mindset, and it gets harder to grow the higher up you go. So start early. Pick early assignments that will stretch and prepare you for the day when it really matters. There will always be hard jobs nobody wants for fear it will make them look bad. Seek them out. The definition of grit is the ability to do something extremely hard for a prolonged period of time. Get grit. In a proverbial sense, we need you to go 15 rounds with Mike Tyson every day. The good news is, after a couple of weeks, you're not afraid of Mike Tyson anymore. Once you lose that fear, once you internalize that it's not about you but about the mission, then the shadow of your leadership reaches across your team and inspires them not to lose hope when times are dark. That is greatness. And I'll let you in on a little secret. When you put your mission before your career is far more meaningful. When you face a choice between mission and self, you won't even hesitate. Your confidence will be unwavering. The second lesson applies when you find failure at a broader organizational level. When the status quo won't simply work. When that happens, think. Don't copy. What does that mean? Failure often manifests itself when people become too comfortable replicating what has worked in the past. In an era of renewed great power competition with massive changes driven by new technology, we cannot simply replicate what worked in the past. In business, when companies fail to adapt, they go bankrupt. In national security, when militaries fail to adapt, they lose wars, hot and cold. Market forces are brutal, efficient, and unavoidable. Don't think for a minute they don't apply in the military. The enemy gets a vote. To some extent, history can be your guide, but the world isn't static. The complexity is far, far greater now than it was for your predecessors. The time constant for change is short and getting much shorter. In national security, these rapid technological advances from artificial intelligence to hypersonics to space mean you will face completely new challenges, things you have never trained for. Threats that don't exist yet will show up on your watch. In this environment, you're going to be asked to do jobs for which there will be no instruction manual, no precedent, no one to call who knows how to do it any better than you. You've been taught the human elements of leadership here at the Academy. These are the core foundational elements of success, and they do not change over time. You have that inside of you. But your ability to make difficult organizational changes will be required for our effectiveness and survival. This was brought into perspective for me by a CEO in a top 10 Fortune 500 company who said, "The job of being CEO that I trained for no longer exists. For those of you who can master this, leading change in the future will be an opportunity." Consider this. When Admiral Rickover graduated from the Academy, the U.S. Navy powered its ships with steam. Scientists hadn't yet split the atom, but the father of the nuclear Navy recognized the applications of that innovation, and he spearheaded the change in naval propulsion. There was no one for Hyman Rickover to copy. We need you to come up with innovative solutions to complex, rapidly evolving problems, from secure, reliable communications with autonomous submersibles, to electrical architectures aboard surface ships, to fighting in the dark without the aid of legacy comm systems that previous graduates took for granted. Some days you'll need to be Hyman Rickover. Other days it's okay to be MacGyver, using paper clips and duct tape. Just remember, it's okay to ask, is this a situation where my commanding officer knows something I don't? Or do I need to exercise initiative consistent with my oath as an officer? The heavy lifting of changing the status quo as we move to meet this era of great power competition has begun. You'll inherit our work of reshaping the department, strengthening our alliances, and reforming our management practices. So have a keen eye that can see what better looks like. Don't be afraid to buck the system so we have what we need to fight and win. Think, don't copy. The last lesson applies to when you encounter ethical failure, and you will. When that happens, stand your ground. In a few moments, you'll become graduates of an academy with the mission of developing midshipmen morally, mentally, and physically, and to imbue them with the highest ideals of duty, honor, and loyalty. You came to this institution from all across our vast and diverse country. You are a microcosm of America. You are also the best of America. If you do not stand on your ground on ethical principles, on excellence in your team, then who can we rely upon to do that? When you see ethical failure in uniform or out, by military members or others, you and your commitment must be unshakable, regardless of the circumstances. The easiest person to stand against is the enemy. The toughest person to stand against is your teammate. You'll have countless opportunities to do this across your career. Let me tell you where you can make a mark on our department right away. I need you young lieutenants and ensigns to set the standard on preventing sexual harassment and assault in our ranks. The status quo won't cut it. You are perfectly postured to make that impact. You are parachuting into the front lines. Set the climate. Model and teach the right behaviors of respect, good order, and discipline. Call it out. Lead, motivate, inspire, coach up, transform our Navy and Marine Corps, make them the institutions they were made to be. Set the example for your subordinates, peers, and leadership. Learn to be comfortably uncomfortable with this responsibility, drawing confidence from the knowledge that when we are aligned on one goal, we're unstoppable. Sexual assault and harassment degrades the dignity of our teammates, and we are on the side of personal dignity in this era of renewed great power competition. We stand against authoritarian regimes that routinely degrade human dignity for their very survival. Remember, we're the good guys, so hold fast to your highest ideals of duty, honor, and loyalty, and stand your ground. Before closing, let me once again address the family and friends. I have a pledge to make to you. As we approach Memorial Day, we remember the ultimate price paid by some of the predecessors of the class of 2019. In my capacity, the most difficult decision is authorizing a mission that I know puts the men and women of our armed forces in harm's way. I will continue to give those orders, but only when absolutely necessary. I may have to put your loved ones, those sitting in front of us today, in harm's way. You know this, and they know this. My pledge to you and to each of these incredible men and women and to my Commander-in-Chief is this: I will do whatever it takes to ensure those missions make the difference to keep our country safe and free. And I promise, to the best of my ability, to provide them with whatever they need to be successful. That is my commitment, and you can hold me to it. Finally, I want to close with an old adage. A ship in port is safe, but that's not what ships were built for. We live in troubled times, from the Chinese and Russian malign activity to that of rogue states. The list of world woes is long. We are going to send you out among them. Are the challenges serious? Yes. Do they require all that is best within us to meet, deter, and if necessary, defeat them? Yes. Do we have any doubt in our ability to do this? None whatsoever. Not as long as you're willing to stay the course, to think, and not merely copy, and stand your ground. Remember who you are, sailors and Marines of the U.S. Navy and Marine Corps. You are guardians of the best of our American heritage and traditions. That heritage includes individual freedom, the universal dignity of all human beings, freedom of speech, and freedom of religion. These ideals do not live on their own in the world. Your predecessors have guarded them for the last 243 years. Now it's your turn. Around the world, your shipmates are waiting to receive you into their ranks. You are joining the finest, most feared, Navy and Marine Corps team in the world. Keep it that way. Soothe our allies and partners and frighten the hell out of our foes. Know of our gratitude for all that you will accomplish in the days to come. Congratulations to the class of 2019. God bless you, our Navy, our Marine Corps, and the United States of America.
Ladies and gentlemen, the Academic Dean and Provost of the United States Naval Academy, Dr. Andrew T. Phillips.
Successfully completing the requirements and demands of a Naval Academy education is no small task. From I-Day to today, it's a steady dose of challenges, ranging from academic to athletic to leadership and character development. I have no doubt that each of you has been challenged, perhaps in ways that you never thought you would, or to levels you never thought you could achieve. But you did, and we congratulate each of you for doing so. To the family and friends of the soon-to-be Naval Academy graduates and officers, these soon-to-be ensigns and second lieutenants, and to the faculty and staff here today as well, I would like to thank you and congratulate you. The rare graduate is the one who never needed the support of family and friends and faculty mentors. These graduates, like the tens of thousands before them, have depended on your support and encouragement, and you were there for them when they needed it the most. I know you are proud of their success, and we are most grateful to you for your role in that success. Candidates, please rise. Admiral Carter, on behalf of the faculty of the United States Naval Academy, I present these candidates for the baccalaureate degree and recommend that this degree be conferred upon them.
And have been recommended by the Academic Board as Superintendent of the United States Naval Academy, and by virtue of the authority vested in me by the Congress of the United States, I confer upon each of you the baccalaureate degree with all rights and privileges thereunto pertaining. Congratulations.
Please be seated. The 37th Commandant of the Marine Corps, General Robert Neller, will administer the oath of office to those being commissioned in the United States Marine Corps. General Neller, I present 265 midshipmen of the graduating class to be commissioned in the United States Marine Corps.
Okay, before we get to the main event, Secretary Shanahan, that was so motivating, I almost thought about pulling my retirement. But then the CNO hit me in the arm. So to the families that are here today, thank you for your support of these officers-to-be. To the class of '69, welcome home. The job I have today is simple: to issue an oath for you to follow, which will then follow you becoming commissioned officers in the United States Marine Corps. This oath we take, and that Admiral Richardson will administer to our Navy shipmates, is an oath to an idea, not to a king, not to an idol, but to an idea, the Constitution of the United States, that we're in this experiment we call American democracy. So many people in here have taken this oath before you, and you will continue to take this oath every time you receive a promotion or you participate in a promotion of another one of your fellow sailors or Marines. So I'd ask everybody here who is in the uniform today, who has worn the uniform, ask you to follow along and in your own mind or heart or out loud say this oath along with these officers. Before we do that, I just mentioned three things. The effort you put forth to get to this point will continue to matter. You get today off after this, but as Secretary Shanahan said and Secretary Spencer, there's a lot to do. So enjoy today, enjoy the acclamation of your family. Don't ever forget how proud they are of you, but your effort matters. It matters to the nation, it matters to your shipmates, it matters to all of us. You will have to persevere. There will be bad days. This is a great day. So again, enjoy it. But you have to be prepared for when you don't have a good day. And those that you lead look to you to stand up and not let that affect your performance. And the last thing I would mention is character counts. This is a character school. We all believe that we teach you, have taught you how to be men and women of virtue and character. And those attributes of humility, of integrity, of compassion, of leadership, of service before self will hold you in good stead. But you have to revalidate that every day. So I'll remind you of that, even though you probably don't need to be reminded of it, but all of us up on this stage, those who wear the uniform today and those that have worn it in the past, know that you have to revalidate all three of those things every day. So at this time, I would ask all midshipmen to be commissioned in the United States Marine Corps to stand. Raise your right hand. I state your full name. Do solemnly swear I will support and defend the Constitution of the United States against all enemies, foreign and domestic, that I will bear true faith and allegiance to the same, that I take this obligation freely without any mental reservation or purpose of evasion, and I will well and faithfully discharge the duties upon which I'm about to enter. So help me God. Congratulations, Marines.
Second Lieutenant, seats. The 31st Chief of Naval Operations, Admiral John Richardson, United States Navy, will administer the oath of office to those being commissioned in the United States Navy. Admiral Richardson, I present 765 midshipmen of the graduating class to be commissioned in the United States Navy.
Thank you, Rob. Congratulations to the 2019. Mr. Secretary, that was one hell of a speech. If they don't get inspired from that, there is nothing that's going to inspire them. That was fantastic. Yeah, absolutely. Let's give Secretary Shanahan another round of applause. Distinguished guests, and most importantly, the class of 2019 midshipmen, I think you can really start to feel this happening, can't you? Yeah. I'll tell you what, you've heard a lot about service. I want to recognize the families one last time, your families, your parents, brothers, sisters, aunts, uncles. You know, service and a sense of service like you have, that doesn't just happen. That comes because your families instilled this sense of service before self in you and brought you to this point. And so to all the families, I want to thank you for giving your children, your sons and daughters, that sense of service. We owe you for that, and we thank you from the bottom of our hearts. One last time, give your parents some recognition. I'll tell you what, we have no greater example of service before self than two people that I'm privileged to share the stage with today. That's Admiral Carter, your superintendent, and General Neller, the Commandant of the Marine Corps. This is their last graduation. They will be retiring after decades, 38 and more than 40 years of service respectively, and I want to just take this time to honor them and recognize them for their service. So Admiral Carter, General Neller, thank you for your service. Hey, we are about to take an oath, all of you graduates about to enter the United States Navy. And you saw that oath right before your eyes with the Marines who just entered the Marine Corps. And I will tell you that as we think about this oath, what it means, we don't take too many oaths in our lives. I mean, you can count them on one hand, really. But they bind us together, this oath, to the Constitution of the United States. They bind us through time. They bind us, perhaps most notably, as we begin the Memorial Day weekend, they bind us with all of your predecessors who fought and gave their ultimate sacrifice in all of these battles that are memorialized here on the walls of this stadium. They bind you with each other, right? Don't lose that. Stay tight as a team. They bind you with everybody else serving in uniform, and perhaps most importantly, they bind you with your future team, the men and women that you will be privileged to lead, and that will happen before you know it. So this oath is a very powerful thing. I'd ask you to give these words some thought, and as the Commandant said, you'll get a chance to repeat it through your career, and each time is so incredibly poignant. All right? So as you think about that oath that binds you to your future team, lead those men and women with honor, courage, and commitment. As the Secretary inspired you, make sure that the Navy and the Marine Corps that you are about to enter and take charge of, that it become the safest Navy and Marine Corps for our sailors and Marines, the best partner Navy and Marine Corps for our allies, and the absolute worst nightmare for our enemies. Will the graduates to be commissioned in the United States Navy rise? Raise your right hand and repeat after me. Having been appointed an ensign in the United States Navy, I solemnly swear to support and defend the Constitution of the United States of America against all enemies, foreign and domestic, to bear true faith and allegiance to the same. I take this obligation freely, without any mental reservation or purpose of evasion, that I will well and faithfully discharge the duties of the office upon which I am about to enter. So help me God. Welcome to the fleet.
Seats. Ladies and gentlemen, today we will graduate 1,052 men and women who have met the many challenges of 4 years at the Naval Academy. In addition to those you just saw commissioned into the Navy and Marine Corps, the class of 2019 also includes 9 graduates from 9 nations around the world. At this time, we invite these international graduating midshipmen to stand when their name is called, along with members of their national delegation who are in attendance today. These graduates, whose national flags are flying above the memorial arches at the north end of the stadium, will return to their countries and serve with distinction in their armed forces or enter other government service. From the Republic of Albania, Mario Trupia. From the Kingdom of Cambodia, Samnang Hang. From Georgia, Radion Tishakaya. From the Republic of Korea, Kiwon Saw. From Malaysia, Mohammed bin Modidries. From Montenegro, Nikola Pejovic. From the Republic of the Philippines, Charmaine Batui. From Taiwan, Peishuin Lee. And from the Kingdom of Thailand, Sonarin Chedyodpam. Seats. Today's graduates join the more than 84,000 men and women who have graduated from the Naval Academy since its founding in 1845. As part of our graduation ceremony today, members of the Naval Academy class that preceded this year's graduates by 50 years will honor this continuing chain of Naval Academy graduates by presenting engraved ensign or second lieutenant uniform devices to the class of 2019. Several members of the class of 1969 are listed in your program, and they're here today to participate in this special recognition of Naval Academy graduates' contributions across the decades. Please join me again in recognizing and applauding these distinguished graduates. Finally, before we begin introductions of individual graduates, I should remind you of an important Naval Academy tradition. The parents and friends of each graduate are invited to stand when that graduate's name is called. In that way, we could recognize your contribution to the achievement of these young men and women. The Acting Secretary of Defense will present diplomas to those individuals graduating with distinction. Those members of the class of 2019 graduating with distinction, please rise. Ensign Megan L. Hansen stands first in the class. Victor P. Turner. Teresa M. Newbig. Samuel H. Baker. Margaret H. Dodds. Andrew J. Borgdorf.